So to start our study of immunology, we need to define what that is. And immunology is the study of the immune system, all of the cells within it, as well as the different tissues. So your immune system can be divided up into two different types of responses. The first is called the innate immune response. The innate immune response is something that you are born with. It's the built-in mechanisms that you have when you come out of the womb that enable you to fight invasion of a pathogen. Now, it doesn't depend at all on previous exposure to a pathogen. So it's not like it's your cells fighting something off that they recognize. It doesn't even matter what kind of pathogen it is. The adaptive immune response, on the other hand, is immunity that is acquired over your life's experiences. It depends on the body's ability to recognize and fight off pathogens by lymphocytes. If you think about it, when a baby's first born, the first time they're exposed to other pathogens is when people come to visit them at the hospital and new people are holding them, etc. And even toddlers, they're always sick. I swear, they always have a drippy nose. Now, that's because they don't have a very well-developed immune system yet. They have their innate, but they don't have an adaptive. So every new pathogen they come in contact with, their body has to attempt to fight off and develop immunity towards. So some other words that we need to understand are antigen, which is any foreign material to the body and immune system. So if it is not considered self or part of you, then it's an antigen. Antigen also, remember, means foreign. Self would be any of the body's own cells, okay? Anything that your body creates. Cool? So I've already defined immunology. So we're going to be starting by talking about the innate immune response. The innate response includes physical and chemical barriers, cell communication systems, phagocytes, inflammation, and fever. So I know that in your packet, you either have one extra listed there or not enough, so either add or cross it off. So we're going to be talking about each of these a little bit more specifically. So let's take a look at your first line of defense, which are your physical barriers. If you think about it, your skin is the first physical barrier that prevents things from getting into your body. But then when you look at all of your portals of entry, all of your openings, there's usually something like epithelial cells that produce cilia or that are mucus producing. So the surface of the body are composed of epithelial cells attached to a basement membrane. That membrane is what attaches your skin then to your muscle and other attachment points. That epithelium, again, might be ciliated or it might be mucus producing. There are two main layers to your skin, the dermis and the epidermis. The dermis is the fibrous connective tissue that is really thick and durable, and then the epidermis is many flattened layers of epithelium that have flattened layers at the bottom. Now, in some cases, your skin has keratin, and those are areas like your fingernails and on your hair. These are going to be water-repelling proteins embedded in those outer layers of the dermis. So if you think about it, how are each of these layers important to your immune system? Well, that really thick, durable dermis is on the bottoms of your feet. And that way, when you walk around barefoot, if you cut yourself, it's really thick and durable, and it makes it harder for something to try and get in. When we look at chemical barriers, a lot of these are going to be considered antimicrobial substances. Those substances are going to be the types of things that your body produces that will either inhibit or kill microbes. Sweat actually has a high salt content that leaves behind a salty residue on your skin. That's why most microbes can't necessarily survive in high salt concentration. So by increasing that salt, it actually prevents a lot of microbes from landing on your skin and reproducing. Lysozyme, I think we've talked about that before, is found in your tears and saliva and mucus. It's also in your white blood cells, your phagocytes, and in the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid that exists between your cells. It's what helps break down peptidoglycan in the cell walls of bacteria. Peroxidase enzymes break down hydrogen peroxide into compounds that, with chlorine, can actually make hypochlorite. That's like bleach. Yikes. So it's found in your saliva and in mammary milk. So peroxidase enzymes can be very helpful as well. Lactoferrin and transferrin both work the same way. They're just found in different parts of the body. Both of them, if you look at the suffix ferrin, it refers to iron. And so they're an iron-binding compound or protein that makes it so that it's not accessible in the environment. So like, let's say we're looking in the bloodstream and you got bacteria in your bloodstream. Transferrin binds the iron so any bacteria can't access it. If they can't get iron, they can't reproduce. Same thing with lactoferrin. It's found in saliva, mucus, and milk. Then there are what are called defensins. Notice how the word ends in the suffix "in". That usually refers to a protein. Protein, okay? Think about how it's spelled. These are found in mucous membranes and phagocytic cells, like your white blood cells. If you think about it, any place where bacteria are trying to get into your body are actually going to be through your mucous membranes, and then sometimes the first cells to encounter them are going to be those white blood cells. So these are short peptides that insert themselves into bacterial membranes and just disrupt them. So that way the cell ends up kind of like falling apart and exploding. So in your note packet, what I'd like to see you do is label on the human body diagram where each of the following are located. Where do you find ciliated epithelium? Where do you find mucous membranes? Sorry for the typos on there. Where do you find lysozyme? And where do you find peroxidase? Okay. Now, the other part of your innate immune response that you are actually born with includes various cells in your immune system. It doesn't mean they're necessarily functional when you're born, but you are born with them. So all of the blood cells in your body come from the same type of cell. It's called a hematopoietic stem cell. These stem cells differentiate into 3 general categories. Red blood cells, or erythrocytes, that carry oxygen. Platelets, that help with clotting blood. White blood cells, or leukocytes. Prefix leuko means white. The prefix erythro means red. Leukocytes are important in your immune defenses, and they divide up into 3 additional categories. So granulocytes, mononuclear phagocytes, and lymphocytes. Now, I don't believe that my numbers there are correct in terms of the page number. I forgot to change that before I did this video. But in your textbook, in chapter, and I better not say the chapter number, but in the innate immune response chapter, you will be able to look up what each of these has, and there's a table in your packet. Each one of them kind of does something different in the immune system, and they also contain something different. So some of them have a special compound or something in them that help them perform their job. If not, you're just going to write down NA. Now, at this point, we've got to talk about fever. Fever occurs because the hypothalamus gets triggered by what are called pyrogens. These are fever-inducing substances. So how is the temperature actually controlled by the body? Well, when the hypothalamus recognizes that your body's been infected by something or comes across a pyrogen, the temperature is controlled by the body by regulating blood flow to the skin. Think about it. When you get hot, you're working out, you're playing a game outside, doing something like that, you get sweaty and your face turns red. That's basically increasing blood flow to the surface of the skin, getting closer to the surface, so that way it can release heat better to cool you down. Your body can either control perspiration. It'll either make you sweat or prevent you from sweating to prevent heat loss. So that's one way that the hypothalamus controls body temperature. So if you think about it, when you have a fever, you don't sweat. My mom always used to tell me, hey, Shelly, it's a good thing you're sweating. That means your fever's gone. So what you might not recognize either, and next time you get sick and have a fever, pay attention to this, it actually slows down your breathing. So the amount of respiration that occurs is less because every time you breathe out, you're losing heat. So how does fever actually inhibit the growth of many pathogens? Well, number one, it elevates the temperature above the microbe's optimum growth temperature, so it can't continue to reproduce. Two, it activates and speeds up a number of the body's different defenses. Kind of interesting that fever happens in the body, and it does this without even you having to think about it. So the innate immune response the fever portion of the innate immune response can speed up enzymatic reactions like inflammation, phagocytosis, the multiplication of your lymphocytes to make more immune cells, the release of chemoattractants if there's tissue damage, and the production of antibodies. So if we're born with an innate immune response system this complex, how come those toddlers and even people that are very old are more susceptible to infection than adults? Well, hopefully you figured out that it's the toddlers, they don't have an immune system yet. And with adults, it's actually because, with elderly, it's actually because the immune structures that they're producing get too old. They don't last a whole lifetime. Okay? So, at this point, make sure that you identify the function of the lymphatic vessels, the primary and secondary lymphoid organs. And again, I'm not sure that my information right here is correct in terms of the page numbers, so make sure that you look that up first, and make sure that you have all three of those things done in your packet, and have a great day.